everyone, and welcome to my very first actual book-related booktube video. I am really excited to share with you some books that I have read so far this year that were so fantastic I just had to share it with the YouTube world. The first book I have today is Masters and Slayers by Brian Davis. If you haven't read any of his books, they are pretty darn fantastic. His writing is just amazing, and they're so good, but Masters and Slayers is a medieval fantasy about Adrian Masters, who is a swordsman who travels to a dangerous alternate universe to save some humans that had been taken captive by dragons. He's accompanied by Marcel, who is pretty feisty, and their relationship is so funny, but this book is really good. So yes, definitely recommend Masters and Slayers. The next book is kind of confusing because I was going to feature Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson, but I don't own Steelheart, so I have the next best thing, which is Firefight. But Steelheart was such a brilliant book. The world building in that thing was so stinking amazing. It was incredible. It was flawless. It was genius. I almost had an anxiety attack just because I'm like, how much of a genius do you have to be to write a book like this? I mean, these are setting impossible standards here, but it was so good. And David was the best main character ever. I loved him and his bad metaphors because I have a few bad metaphors myself. He was so good. He was so funny, and I really liked how he wasn't older than he was supposed to be. He didn't act like a 14-year-old. He was 18, but he didn't act like a 30-year-old either. He wasn't some heroic guy who could do anything: sword fight, gun fight, run, jump, skip, whatever. He was good at finding epic weaknesses, and that's it. He was equipped to do other things, but he was good at what he was good at, and he was bad at what he was bad at. The epics were like my favorite thing ever. They were super epic. But they were so cool. They had their own little quirks that would destroy them, but they were so random that they made sense. It was so brilliant to read and to try to guess what each weakness was. And then the actual Reckoners, I was totally rooting for them too because their team was so diverse. I don't know how they worked together and got anything done, but they did, and it was epic. It was so funny. And then the storyline, of course, was just bursting with amazingness. Steelheart was so good, and Firefight definitely has the same promise. I'm about halfway through. I'm actually currently reading this right now, so I don't know quite where the story's going. I think I like Steelheart a little better, but only because I liked Steelheart a lot. He was so awesome. He just like came in and annihilated a city, and I was like, man, respect. But Steelheart was like kind of one of my favorite characters just because he was so ruthless in a really awesome way. I loved Steelheart. There are leaves in my pockets. So the next book I have is Scarlet. Okay, so I don't know how I'm going to talk about this without like freaking out because it was so good. Scarlet was one of my favorite reads so far of this year. Cinder was amazing. I didn't think it could get any better, but it did, in the form of Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. You guys, that book, Scarlet was Miss Feisty Pants, and her character was so good, and her relationship with her grandmother was so fantastic. It was so deep because they got each other and they understood each other's personality. So that gave Scarlet a drive to do what she did, not just because she was heroic, but because she had a deep love for her grandmother. And it was a unique relationship because it wasn't just some guardian-child relationship. And then Wolf was so cool. I loved him so much. He was just a giant teddy bear, like a killer teddy bear that would rip your face off but then hug you like within 2 seconds. Just his contrast in his personality was so awesome. And then the storyline with Cinder and Thorn. I loved Cinder in this book and her character development because in the last book she didn't quite have a place in society. She didn't really know where she was supposed to go or what she was supposed to do because she was such an outcast. But now she has her purpose and she knows who she wants to protect and she knows who she wants to destroy, and she has a drive towards her impossible goals, and that gives her such a strength to her character, and I loved that in her. Can we just talk about Thorne for a second? I love that guy. He was the best. He's like Flynn Rider and Han Solo combined into one ship-riding smuggler. I mean, seriously, it was the best thing. He was fantastic. Definite A+ for Scarlett. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you so much for joining me and for subscribing and commenting and all of that fun stuff. What are some books that you have read this year that have really stood out to you? I would love to hear them. So thank you so much for joining me. Happy reading!